Hi everybody, this is Bonnie with Bonnie Bay Crochet, and today I want to show you how to make my Celtic weave and lace top or dress. Let me go ahead and show you some better photos right here. Well, let me go ahead and show you what you're going to need. For this project, I'm going to be using Ella Rae's Rustic Silk and some stats on this. This is color number 06. Each of these hanks has 3.52 ounces or 100 grams, 437 yards or 400 meters, and this is 100% silk. The number that I will be using as far as how many hanks, just look across the bottom of the screen and I'll show you how many I use. For this project, I'm going to be using a size G or US size 6 or 4.00 millimeter crochet hook. And as always, I'm recommending that you have a pair of sharp scissors and a yarn needle handy. And for the record, I am going to be making the size medium to large for this project. You can check the pattern for more details. Okay, to begin, we're going to start with our slip knot. And I'm going to crochet a starting chain of 128 chains. If you're going to make a different size than what I'm making, I would just encourage you to check with the pattern for those different numbers. After crocheting those 128 chains, we're going to join with a slip stitch to the first chain, but I'm going to make sure that the chain is not twisted before I join that. So I'm going to carefully keep that front side of the chain facing me. I'm taking a lot of time to do this because it's really, really important, and I encourage you to do the same so that you're not adding in additional stitches as you crochet around. It's really important. Okay, so that is the first chain. So I'm going to join with a slip stitch to that first chain. I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and for the record, this chain does not count as the double crochet stitch count. And we're going to work a double crochet in that same space in which we just joined, and I'm going to work a double crochet in each chain all the way around. And just like the stitch count on the chains, you should have 128 double crochets in this first round. So go ahead and work those double crochets, one in each chain all the way around, and I'll show you the join. After working this all the way around, you should have 128 double crochets. Again, that's not including the chain 2, and do make sure that there are no twists as you join. And we're going to join with a slip stitch to that first stitch. Let's go ahead and turn. I'm going to chain 2. Again, this does not count as a stitch in the stitch count. And we are going to begin round 2 by double wrapping our hook for front post treble. We're going to skip the first 2 stitches, and then we're going to front post treble in the next 2 stitches. Working in front of those 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble in the 2 stitches that we just skipped. Just like so. And now we're going to do something a little different. In between this stitch, which is the 4th stitch, and the next stitch, it's not in a stitch, but it's in between stitches. We're going to work 2 double crochets, and these are the increases. We're going to do that all the way around. I'll do this for you again. Skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2 stitches, and again working in front of those 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble in the 2 stitches that we just skipped. Let's try that one again. And again, these are just front post treble crochets, and in between this stitch here, which was the second of the front post trebles we worked, which is the 4th stitch over here, and between that one and the next stitch, we're going to work 2 double crochets again as increases. So go ahead and work that all the way around. After working this all the way around, and don't forget to work 2 double crochets in between that last stitch and the next stitch before joining. And let's go ahead and find that first stitch of the round, which was that first front post treble, and we're going to join with a slip stitch. And you may want to do a visual check to make sure that you have 2 double crochets in between each 4-post cable all the way around. Make sure, just do a quick visual. Okay, I think we're good. All right, so now we're going to turn to have the back side facing. Go ahead and chain 2, and this is what we're going to do all the way around. In each of those double crochets, we're going to work 2 double crochets. Yeah, this is another increase round. And then 2 double crochets in the next stitch. Now, as we work across those 4-post cables where we cross those trebles, we're going to work 4 back post double crochets, 1 in each stitch. Let's try that one again. Okay, just like that. I'll go ahead and do this repeat for you one more time. 2 double crochets in each of those double crochets that we added in on the last round. And then when we get to that 4-post cable, we work 4 back post double crochets. Make sure you get all 4 of those stitches. And that is going to be your repeat all the way around for round 3. At the end of the round, go ahead and join with a slip stitch to that first stitch of the round. And let's turn. And again, I do recommend that you give a quick visual check just to remember, make sure that you put 4 stitches in those 2 double crochets, for a total of 4 stitches all the way around. Okay, now for round 4, we're going to begin the Celtic weave. We're going to start with a chain 3. We're going to skip the first 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4. And in the next 2 stitches, we're going to work front post treble crochets. Like this. Working in front of these 2 stitches, we're going to work front post trebles in the nearest 2 stitches of the 4 that we skipped. These 2 stitches, which were the first 2 that we skipped, we're going to work at the end of the round. So when we work our front post trebles, we're going to be working them in the 2 closest to the stitches that we just worked. Okay, it looks like this. And then we're going to do this all the way around. Skip the next 2 stitches. front post treble in the next 2 stitches, and these 2 stitches should be part of the cable here. And then again, working in front of those last 2 stitches, we front post treble in the 2 skipped stitches. Now I do have some other online video tutorials for this stitch you may want to take a look at in case you need additional support. We are working the Celtic stitch in the round, so be sure that you watch that one. I'll try to have a link in the video description below should you need additional stitch support on this stitch. Round 1 is usually fairly easy and straightforward. Round 2 of the Celtic weave worked into round might be a little on the trickier side, so definitely check out those links below. I'm going to do this for you one more time. Skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble the next 2 stitches, working in front of those 2 stitches, front post treble and the 2 stitches that were skipped. So go ahead and work that all the way around. After working this all the way around, you should have 2 stitches left here, and then here's the turning chain, which again does not count as a stitch, and then you have the 2 stitches at the very beginning. So this is how we finish out this round. We skip the 2 stitches, and of course that turning chain, which doesn't count as a stitch, and in the next 2 stitches, which were the first 2 that we skipped, we're going to work front post treble crochets, and again working in front of those stitches, we're going to front post treble in those last 2 stitches of the round. And that's how this is worked in the round. Slip stitch to that first stitch of the round. Okay, so you may want to just again do a visual check, although if you've made it this far you should be fine, but you know, it's always good to make a check at the end of each round. Okay, so now we're going to turn to work the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th row of the project. This is round 2 of the Celtic weave. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to skip the first 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4 are the first set of 4 stitches. And in the next 2 stitches, we're going to work back post treble crochet in those next 2 stitches. Now working in front of those stitches as seen from the front side, we're going to back post treble over these 2 stitches that were skipped. And again, this is where I encourage you to check out one of the other videos, because I think you'll be able to see this better with the different yarn in those. So working in front with crossing in front as seen from the front side, we're going to come around and back post treble in each of those stitches. And this is also an area where you can use the nerve endings in your thumb and finger to help you find these stitches. Let me go ahead and do that again. Skip the next 2 stitches and the next 2, and you also know that these will be the stitches on the surface that are leaning in this direction. Again, back post treble and the next 2 stitches, working in front of these stitches as seen from the front side. So as seen from this side, we're going to work our back post trebles around this stitch and then this stitch. So coming in the back door, that's the first stitch, and the second one, which is right there. Okay, I'm going to do this one more time in case you've never seen this before. Skip the next 2 stitches. And again, the stitches that are on top, back post treble in each of those stitches. And working in front of those as seen from the front side. Going to back post treble around this stitch and then this stitch coming in from the back. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and, so this is what it should look like from the back side. The front side will look much better, of course. So this is what this will look like from the front side. So go ahead and work that all the way around. Now as we work the last few stitches, as we join, we're going to have 2 stitches remaining here, and then again the turning chain, and then the 2 stitches here that we skipped at the very beginning of the round. So let's go ahead and we're going to skip these 2 stitches, back post treble over the first 2 stitches that were skipped in the round, and again working in front of those stitches as seen from the front side. Let's go ahead and work the last 2 stitches of the round. Like that, and then we're going to join with a slip stitch to the very first stitch of the round. Again, I'm showing you the chain here, and this is the first stitch of the round. And by working this way, you can see the chain is going to go back and forth on the back side where it won't be seen. Let's go ahead and look at the front side. So you don't even see the chain in this section. So you see these last 2 rows of the Celtic weave, that's what we're going to continue to do. So if you look across the bottom of the screen, I'm going to tell you how many times to repeat this. We're going to repeat row, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, rows 4 and 5. We're going to repeat the number, these 2 rows, the number of times that you see across at the bottom of your screen. And so each time you do that, we're going to turn at the end of each round and chain 3 at the beginning. And you always start by skipping 4 stitches, whether you have the front side facing or the back side. So I'm going to go ahead and get you started on row number 6. So we skip the first 4 stitches, and then we front post treble in the next 2 stitches. And this round is going to be a lot easier to work. We're working it the same as round number 4, but the Celtic weave is more established. So after working these 2 stitches, we're going to work in the 2 stitches that we skipped. You may have to hunt for them a little bit, again using the nerve endings in your thumb and finger. So we front post treble in those 2 skipped stitches. Okay, I'm going to do a couple more for you before sending you off on the adventure of that assignment. Skip 2, front post treble in the next 2 stitches. And I'm really enjoying the rustic look of this yarn. Working in front of those 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble in the 2 stitches that we skipped once I locate them. And again, the row that follows, or the round, that follows this round will be exactly like what we worked on row 5. Okay, so go ahead and work that assignment, repeating rows 4 and 5. After repeating rounds 4 and 5 additional times, and then round 4 once more, this is what you should have for the collar. And I'm really enjoying this beautiful silk yarn. And now if you want this collar to be longer, you can certainly work additional rounds, but we're going to now work the round that will discontinue the Celtic weave, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So the last round, again, was a repeat of round 4, which would have the front side facing. Let's go ahead and chain 2, and we're going to turn. So now we have the back side of our work facing. And for this round, we're simply going to work back post double crochets in each stitch. So just for the record, you'll have 4 back post double crochets over each of those 4-stitch Celtic weave crossings. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and 4 over the first Celtic crossing, and we'll just continue on working those back post double crochets. So go ahead and work that all the way around, and I'll show you the connection at the end. After working those back post double crochets all the way around, we're going to join with a slip stitch to the top of the very first back post double crochet worked. I'm going to go ahead and just give it a chain to just secure for just a moment, and let's take a look at what we have. Now I have placed some stitch markers in very strategic locations, and I am going to explain this. I've decided that I'm going to have the seam of the lace work down the back of the dress. Okay, it's not going to be a prominent seam, but I didn't want it in the front or along the sides. Okay, and let me show you where I placed these stitch markers. Okay, here again is the center, which is going to be the center of the back. And I'm going to be counting the 4 stitch groupings here, or the Celtic crosses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And in between the 8th and the 9th, I went ahead and put a stitch marker. And what we're doing here is we're marking where the arm openings are going to be in this project. So I'm going to go ahead, put a stitch marker there. Okay, and then going again from the center, the other direction, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I put a stitch marker in between the 8th and the 9th cluster of 4 stitches. Again, it's going to be 32 stitches from the center of the back to the left armhole opening, the first stitch marker, and then likewise 32 stitches from the center to the next stitch marker, which will designate the arm opening. Okay, now on both sides, on each direction, I'm going to show you just the left arm. This is how many of these Celtic crosses, which are 4 stitch clusters, are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then put a stitch marker in between the 15th and the next stitch group of stitches here. So again, 15 of these 4 stitch Celtic crosses, which equals 60 stitches. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side, counting 15 of these 4 stitch groupings. I'm going to flip it to the front side now, and I put a stitch marker, which should be here, right here, and then in the front of the dress or top, however, whichever you wanted to make, I'm going to count these for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So the front is going to be 8 stitches wider than the back to have some allowance for the bust area. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a little diagram in the video right here, and you can pause on this and look at this. This again is for the medium to large size, and for our more stitch and sizing specifics, I'm going to encourage you to check out the written pattern because it gets pretty complicated when it comes to sizing and altering the size. That said, if you find that you need more diameter space around, if you have, let's say, a wider body or a smaller body, it's going to be very easy in the pattern to adjust with the chains that we're going to be adding here. So let's go ahead on to the next row, which is going to be an easy row of single crochets. It's actually going to be a round because we are going to continue to work in the round. So let's go ahead and we're going to call this round 1 of the bodice. So after turning, I already have a chain 1, which we'll just go ahead and use that. And just keep in mind, this chain does not count as a stitch. So we're going to start in the very next stitch right here. And we're going to work a single crochet in each stitch until we get to the first stitch marker, which is going to be designating the arm opening. After working those single crochets to the next stitch marker, we're going to chain 22 and 21, 22, and this is going to be for the area that is under the arm, and we're going to skip these sections until we get to the next stitch marker, which is here. So this is going to be the sleeve cap that we're skipping now, and again keeping this front side facing and being careful not to twist the chain. We're going to begin or continue to work the single crochets in the stitch just past the stitch marker, and again single crochet in each stitch until you get to the next stitch marker. So you can see the sleeve cap is right here. After working over those 72 stitches, which are along the front side, I've worked until I reached my next stitch marker. And so now I'm going to make another chain of 22 stitches. So now that I have my chain of 22, let me just say that if you need, again, if you need to make the circumference around larger, you can add in multiples of 6 to the chains under the arms, but just remember whatever you do on one side to do on the other. And if you find that that's too much space, you can always reduce the number of chains under the arm. But as you do that, make sure that it is within a multiple of 6 so that the project maintains its integrity for the lace that we're going to be working, which requires a multiple of 6. Okay, so after this chain, we're going to skip the 15 4-stitch clusters, and that brings us to our last stitch marker, which is on the back side again, and starting in that next stitch to the left of the stitch marker, or to the right if you are working this in a left-handed manner. Okay, there we go. And so I just continue working those single crochets until we get to the, there we go, until we get to the first single crochet of the round. And again, the other sleeve cap on the other side. After working to the first single crochet, we're going to go ahead and join with a slip stitch. And so now we have our round 1 of the bodice complete. I would highly recommend, if this top or dress is for you, to just pause here and try this on just to make sure that it is going to be the size that you desire. I recommend that you do that now because This is not going to get any bigger, and if you're using the silk, it is not going to get any smaller. So definitely take the time to check the size. The other thing you can do is compare it to a shirt that fits you well, and you can, lay this on top of the shirt and just do a quick comparison. Now we're ready to begin round number 2, which begins the lace pattern. We start with a chain 5, and then we're going to work a double crochet in the chain 1 of this chain 5, just like that. And you kind of make this little Y figure that we are going to be working in quite a bit in this project. Okay, then we're going to chain 1. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, and we're going to single crochet in the next stitch. Chain 1. After working that chain 1, we're going to skip 2 more stitches, and in the next stitch we're going to work a double crochet, a chain 1, a treble crochet, chain 1, and then another double crochet, and then we're going to chain 1 once more. Okay, after we do that, we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, and single crochet in the next stitch. And this is going to be the repeat. I'll go ahead and do this with you again. Chain 1, skip 2 stitches, and in that next stitch, which is the 3rd stitch, double crochet, chain 1, treble crochet, chain 1, and double crochet, chain 1, skip the next 2 stitches, single crochet in the next stitch. So go ahead and work that to the chain, and I will show you what to do from the point of the chain, which is essentially the same, but I will demonstrate that for you. So now that I come to the chain section, I'm going to just treat that as I would a single crochet, and I'm going to work through 2 of the strands of the chain just to give it a little more strength. I'm going to skip the next 2 stitches, and then the next chain I'm going to work a single crochet. I'm going to be working over 2 of those strands, and we are going to work a round to finish the sleeve cap, so don't worry about this showing the way it is. Chain 1, skip the next 2 chains, and in the next chain I'm going to go ahead and work the double crochet, chain 1, a treble, if I can get the loops to stay on the hook, a treble crochet, a chain 1, and then a double crochet, chain 1, and then we're going to skip the next 2 chains, and then in the next chain we work a single crochet. So go ahead and work this lace pattern all the way around, and I'll show you the connection at the end. After working that double crochet in the chain 1, we're going to join with the chain just like that. Okay, go ahead and give it a chain 1, and now we are going to turn to work round 3, which is actually the second round of the lace. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to single crochet at the top where we just joined. So after that first single crochet, we're going to chain 1. We're going to skip this chain, the double crochet, the chain, and we're going to go work our next stitch in this single crochet from the last round. We get ready for a treble crochet, and we work the treble crochet in that stitch, chain 1. Now what we're going to do next is very interesting. We're going to work a double crochet but in the side of the treble. The way I like to do this is I wrap my hook and then working in just 2 of those strands, right, like that. You can see I have my hook under 2 of the strands of that treble, and then we work that double crochet. So you end up with this Y kind of a stitch. All right, and then we chain 1. We're going to skip the next chain, double crochet and chain, and just working in the top of that treble, we're going to work a single crochet. And this is the repeat. I'm going to work this with you again so that there's no doubt. Chain 1, and we're going to skip the chain, the double crochet, the chain, and then working in that single crochet, which is in the valley there, work a treble crochet, chain 1, and then working in 2 strands of that side of that treble, we're going to work a double crochet, and again forming that Y shape. Chain 1, we're going to skip to the top of the next treble and single crochet in that stitch. I'll do it one more time. Chain 1, skip to the next single crochet, treble in that single crochet, chain 1, working along the side of that treble, 2 strands of it, work a double crochet, chain 1, and again skip to the next treble and single crochet in the top of that stitch. So go ahead and work that all the way around. After working this all the way around, we're going to join with a slip stitch to that very first single crochet of the round. I'd also recommend putting a stitch marker in the place where you join, just so that you have a reminder of the first stitch of each round. Let's go ahead and turn. I'll have the front side facing at this point, and we're going to chain 1. We're going to single crochet in the same place as joining. After that, chain 1. So after working that single crochet and chain, we're going to skip the next chain and the stitch, and working in the chain 1 space, which is the center of the Y that we formed, we're going to work a double crochet, chain 1, a treble crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet. And we also follow that with another chain 1 and skip the next chain and this part of the stitch, and then we're going to single crochet in the single crochet. I'm going to go ahead and work this for you again, and this is what we're going to be working all the way around. Chain 1, skip the chain and this stitch, and working in the chain 1 space, which is where the Y, center of that Y, we work a double crochet, chain 1, a treble crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet. There we go, followed by a chain 1. Let's pause so the camera can really focus on what we've just done there. And again, skip this stitch and the chain 1, single crochet in the next single crochet. Let me work that one more time. Chain 1 and skip the chain and the stitch, and working in the chain 1 of the Y, double crochet, chain 1, treble crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet, chain 1, skip the next stitch and the chain, and in that single crochet we work another single crochet. So go ahead and work that all the way around. After working this all the way around, we're going to join with a slip stitch to that first single crochet of the round. So let's go ahead and take a look and see how beautiful this looks. All right, let's go ahead and turn. And we're going to begin round number 5, which begins very similarly to round 2, we're going to start with a chain 5, and we're going to work a double crochet in that first of those 5 chains. Okay, chain 1, we're going to work a single crochet in that treble. Of course, that means skipping the chain, the double crochet, the chain, and single crocheting in the top of that treble crochet, chain 1, and skipping the chain, the double crochet, the chain, and working in that single crochet. We work the treble, chain 1, and then like we did before, working in those 2 loops along the side. It can be a little bit tricky to get to sometimes. There we go. Work that double crochet and chain 1. I'll go ahead and do that for you again. We're going to skip the chain, the double crochet, the chain, and in the next treble crochet we work a single crochet, chain 1, and skipping the chain, the double crochet, and the chain again, we work a treble crochet in the single crochet, chain 1, and then we work a double crochet along the side of that treble crochet, chain 1, and again skipping the chain, the double crochet, the chain, we work a single crochet into the treble, so that your work should look like this. So go ahead and work that all the way around. At the end of round 5, we're going to join with a slip stitch to that chain that we formed at the beginning. Let's go ahead and turn, and we'll have the front side facing us again. And we're going to start with a chain 5. Okay. So after that chain 5, we're going to work a double crochet in the same place as joining. Okay, so just right in that open space there. And at the end of this round, we will end the round with a double crochet in the same place, but I'm getting ahead of myself. After this, we're going to chain 1, single crochet in that next single crochet, and we are skipping the chain here. Chain 1, skip the chain and the stitch here, and then in this chain 1 space, which is the top of the Y, we work a double crochet, chain 1, and a treble crochet, a chain 1, and a double crochet, chain 1. Skip the next stitch, the single crochet, and in the single, the chain, and in this single crochet we work another single crochet, and this is the repeat all the way around. I'll do it for you one more time. Chain 1, skip the chain and the double crochet here, working in the chain 1 space. We work the double crochet, chain 1, a treble crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet, chain 1, skip the stitch and the single crochet, the chain, and then single crochet in the next single crochet, and of course follow that with the chain 1 and do it all over again. And this is what the lace portion will look like. So go ahead and work that all the way around. At the end of this round, we end with a double crochet worked in that same space where we began the round, a chain 1, and then a slip stitch to the original chain 5. So we have worked 6 rounds. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to round 3, and we're going to repeat rounds 3, 4, 5, and 6 over and over until this is the length that you want for either a top or the dress. So it's just going to be repeating again rounds 3, 4, 5, and 6, and I'll put a little time mark across the bottom of the screen where round 3 begins, and you can watch that should you need additional stitch support. So go ahead and again make this the length that you wish this to be, and I can show you how to fasten off and or do an alternate finishing using beads. Now that the length of this dress is about where I want it, and you do want to try this on or take a careful measuring perhaps up against another dress that you own where you like the length, okay, before you work this final round. And this final round, I'm also adding some additional beads. I've also pre-strung some larger beads onto this project, and let me go ahead and give you a quick measurement of these beads. These are about 1/4 of an inch wide, and let me show you what that looks like in centimeters. It's approximately 6 millimeters or 0.6 centimeters in diameter, in case you want to try to match what I'm doing, but you really don't have to. The main thing with you're working with these beads is that the yarn that you're using needs to be able to flow through the center of them comfortably. So now we're going to work the round that includes the beads, and let me show you how we're going to do this. We're going to start by including the first bead on the chain. So we're going to chain 4 stitches, and on the 5th chain we are going to put that bead into the chain, and we're going to chain 1 more and then work a double crochet. Remember, this is the place where we will work an additional double crochet in this section when we complete this. Chain 1, single crochet in that single crochet, and then working in the Y section, work a double crochet, chain 1, and the treble, we're going to go ahead, let me back this out a little bit. I'm going to wrap twice, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and before we complete the last section, we're going to add that bead, yarn over, pull through 2, chain 1, and then another double crochet. So this is how those beads will be on the edge. Let me go ahead and do this again. Chain 1, single crochet, chain 1, and then we're going to do that 3-stitch cluster again, double crochet, chain 1. You can see that bead creeping in there. We're working our treble, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and before we do the last pull through on that treble, slide the bead down, yarn over, pull through 2, and then a chain, and then a double crochet, and chain 1, and then etc. all the way around. And as these hang down, they will, they will be seen quite well. So go ahead and work those all the way around. After working this all the way around, I've chained 1 after that last single crochet, and we come to the place where we started with the chain 5. We're going to work a double crochet in that same space, a chain 1, and we're just going to join to that chain 5 with a slip stitch. Go ahead and give it a chain and give it a nice tug and clip a generous strand so that would be easy to hide within your work. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this beautiful edging. Let's go ahead and just look at it this way. And those pearls will
will fall just with gravity. And I think that's going to be a lovely trim along the bottom of this dress. And if you're making just a shirt, you can make this lovely trim or not at the bottom of the shirt, and I think it would look just as elegant.
Now as we get to the beading section, I am putting my beads into a nice bowl to make them available to me, and it's easy to, you know, pick them out this way. I have many different sizes, many of which I will not be using, but I am going to be using the smaller beads for the collar at the moment. This size, let me give you an idea of how big that is. Let me get the measuring tool, and let's get a measurement on this bead to be as exact as I can. I'm holding that up alongside a centimeter. Let me move the bowl out of the way for you. Okay, so if you can see the size of that bead, it is a little bit less. It's like looks like 8 to 9 millimeters wide or around, and let's look at the inch side. So it's roughly a little bit bigger. I would say that's like 5/16 of an inch. Okay, so if that helps you just to know the size beads, but you can really use any other type of beads. You don't have to use pearls. You can use whatever you want, but I'm going to show you how you can thread these on to your yarn, because you're going to want to thread these on first. It's just the easiest way to do this. You're going to thread them on, and like I said, I used 68 for my collar, but I recommend that you thread on, let's say 80 to 90, just so that you have extras in case your work requires more. So to begin, we're going to want to thread our needle, and the needle that I'm using has a very generous head on it, and that it collapses very well when the beads pass over. And I will show you just how easy this can be. So I find the bead that I want to thread on to the needle, and I can actually do a couple at a time. I'm picking them out of the bowl just like this, and then once they are on the needle, they simply slide over the yarn. So go ahead and thread the pearls or the beads onto your yarn, and once you've done that, we're ready to begin. Now to begin, we're going to start with our slip knot, and we are going to chain 8. We are going to work in the 4th chain from the hook. We're going to work a double crochet in that first chain. And the next 2, we're going to add beads. And we do this by working our double crochet by wrapping the hook, inserting in that chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Now we go to our beads that have been strung onto our yarn supply, slide it all the way down, yarn over, and pull through 2. The beads will be facing away from you on this row. Let's do that again. Yarn over, insert our hook into the chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, slide a bead down, yarn over, pull through 2. Then we're going to work double crochets in the last 2 chains. Okay, so this is what you should see from the front side, and once you turn it, this is actually going to be the front side for the design, but this is what you're going to see with the beads facing. Okay, now we're ready to work row 2. Let's chain 2, 1, 2. We're going to skip the first 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to work a front post treble crochet on that 4th stitch and on the next stitch right here. Working in front of those 2 stitches, we're going to work in the 2nd and the 3rd stitch with a front post treble crochet. I want to be a little slower on this next one as we work this stitch. Notice how I am sure that the bead stays in front as I work around this stitch. Be careful that you work the completion of these trebles above where the bead or the pearl is. And we're going to work a double crochet in that turning chain. So this is what you should have after 2 rows. And we're basically going to repeat this until the beading trim is long enough to go around the circumference of the collar. So let me go ahead and do these 2 rows for you again. We're going to turn, chain 2. Now we're going to work back post double crochets. We're going to skip the first stitch, back post double crochet in the first stitch. Now the 2nd and the 3rd stitches, we are going to work beads into them. So the next stitch, we work a back post double crochet, and we've prepared to do that. Yarn over, pull through 2, and at this point is where I'm going to slide a bead into place. Yarn over, pull through 2, and let's do that again. We're going to do another back post double crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Now it's time to slide a bead down, just like that. Yarn over, pull through 2, and then another back post double crochet. Then we're going to work a double crochet at the end, just like this. And when we turn it around, you can see that cable. Now you have 2 sets of beads. Let's do row number 4, chain 2, skip the first 3 stitches, and I'm going to try to be very careful, show you how I work this hook. Keep the thread above the bead as you are forming this front post treble crochet, and then treble, front post treble in the next stitch. Working in front of those last 2 stitches, we're going to front post in the 2nd and the 3rd stitch that we skipped. We don't work in the end stitches. This is a little bit tricky, and you want to be very careful as you work this. This is not something you do with a lot of speed. Okay, so I'm ready to work this next one around the bead. Again, keeping the thread in front or on above where the bead is. We complete that. Then again, work a double crochet into the turning chain. So let's go ahead and pause and take a look at that. So go ahead and work that until the length reaches around the circumference of the collar. I ended up with 78 rows. You may end up with fewer or more, but the important thing is that the length of this fits evenly around the collar. I am so happy to show you this. I have completed 78 rows, and I used 78 beads. So you can see how this looks. And I have measured to make sure that it goes around the entire circumference of the collar of this project. And I want you to do the same. Now, there might be some stretchiness to this, but you don't want to stretch this at all when you do the measuring. Now, I'm telling you how many rows that I have, but you may need more, you may need fewer, depending on how your beading section crochets up, and also on the type of fiber yarn that you decided to use. The important thing here is not the exact number of rows that I use, but just you need to make sure that what you have goes around the entire circumference of the collar. Okay, once you do that, we are going to join both ends so that it becomes one piece when we fasten this on, or when we sew this to the collar. So I'm going to connect both ends, making sure that it is not twisted in any way. And yeah, this does tend to twist up a bit. Okay, so now both sides are facing. So I want to do this to the inside, so I'm going to turn. So again, we're going to have the front sides facing, making sure that this isn't twisted in any way. I've chained one, and I'm going to work in the first stitch, and I'm going to join this to the very first stitch, or the chain right here. I'm going to slip, stitch, there we go. I don't want to do this too quickly because I want this to match perfectly. Okay, and then in the next space, let's double check to make sure that we have that. Go ahead and slip, stitch that together. I'm going to have 4 of these working across. And the last one is right here. It's okay if they're not perfect, but you just want it to be lined up as best you can. Go ahead and give it a knot and a tug, and I'm going to clip a generous strand for this. And you can see that looks, for the most part, looks pretty seamless. What I am going to do though is I'm going to make sure that this goes to the back of the neck when I attach it to the collar. Now we're in the home stretch, and I'm going to show you how to connect the cabled beaded section to the collar. This is pretty easy to do, and to hold this in place where I want it to be connected, I have these little things called knit clips. You don't need these, but they do make life a lot simpler and safe around the home. You can just use pins and pin it into place, but I just prefer these. If you've never seen these, I just wanted to show them to you, and check the link below. You should be able to find them. If you don't find them in a craft store, I can give you a link where you can locate them online. Okay, so what I've done, this is the back of the collar. So this is the back of the collar, and this is the seam with the beaded section. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to be working slip stitches, and I'm going to connect them in between by running the hook in between the sections like this, and I'm going to just connect them with a simple slip stitch. With this yarn, you are probably not going to see them, and it's just going to be a very secure way to connect them. You don't have to sew them by hand, and if you know me much at all online, I will do whatever I need to do to prevent from having to get sewing needle and thread out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and work a slip knot. So this is the back, and we are going to join this with the chain, just like that, and make sure it's nice and tight. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through, let me show you. You can see I'm going through this section, which is the row end, just over that last row, and then in between the 2 stitches, and pull it through, slip, stitch. Okay, let's do the next one, coming over here. And again, trying to maintain consistency here. You don't have to, you may not have a slip stitch in between every set of stitches here, but you just want to do whatever you do evenly. Slip, stitch. Let's go to the next one. And again, make sure that you're going through both layers. Slip, stitch. And let's go a little bit further down here. Slip, stitch, etc. So go ahead and work this, and let's make sure that last one didn't go through the other section. Let's do that one again. Okay, so right here, and let's just bring it over here. Slip, stitch, just like that. So the goal is you're going to be connecting this. It's going to just lay on the top like this, but it's going to be very secure. I've done this in another design and it worked very well. But again, make sure that you are going through 2 layers and don't do what I just did earlier. But I'm glad that happened so that you can see. And if you want to do 2 going into the same stitch, that's fine. Okay, so you just want to make sure that this is lined up according to the way you line this up beforehand. So go ahead and work that all the way around, and you can join at the end with a slip stitch and fasten off, and I'll show that to you. After working this all the way around, I'm going to simply join with a slip stitch to the first stitch of the round, and if you're wondering where that stitch is, you have the strand right here to help you to find it. It is right here, but of course if you attach it in another place, I don't think anybody's going to know. So go ahead, and then I'm going to give it a chain and a tug, and I'm going to clip a generous strand so that I will be able to easily hide the loose ends. And as you can see, I have some other loose ends that I need to hide, and I would advise you to hide them, carefully on the back side of your work. Let's go ahead now, and let me go ahead and show the front side, and we see how this looks. Of course, we'll have to deal with those strands. I think this is going to be lovely to wear. And you can see that it looks nice and even as it's attached all the way around the neckline. Just to show you that. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on the sleeves. Okay, I want to give you a view of what I've already done to the one sleeve, and I'll show you how to do this to the other. I just simply worked a row of single crochets all the way around, and I will show you how to work these just very carefully by working 3 single crochets in the row ends on the lace portion. Well, let's go ahead and let's do this. The first thing we're going to do is try to find where the underarm portion is, which is right here, and I'm just going to fold that in half. So it's approximately right here. So I'm going to go ahead and join. So now that we've found the place where we're going to join, let's go ahead and make a slip knot. And I'm going to join toward the end of that space with the chain, and then we're going to work 3 single crochets in that chain opening. We're going to skip the stitch here, and then we're going to work 3 more stitches in that next chain space. And doing this round will kind of just tighten up the area around the arm just a bit. I'm going to skip the next stitch, and then again work those 3 stitches, 3 single crochets in that next opening, And again, skip the next stitch. And of course, when you finish this round, we're going to do the same as we work over the lace portion when you come down the other side, and then join with a slip stitch and fasten off. But this is pretty straightforward and certainly easier than joining the beads, the beaded segment. Okay, so let's go ahead and do 3 more here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and remove my stitch marker. This was way back when we were determining which was the front and the back side of our dress or top. Okay, let's go ahead and put a stitch there. And then now we're back to just working in the top loops. So go ahead. And let me also mention, have the front side of your work facing as you do this on both sleeve trims. And we just work a single crochet in each stitch all the way around. And if you find that the sleeve is still a little bit on the looser side than you prefer, you can always go down to a smaller crochet hook and then work the round, and that will kind of bring the stitches in just a bit more. Okay, so go ahead and finish working that trim on the sleeve and the one on the other sleeve as well. And then we will be all finished. So all you have to do at this point would be to hide those loose strands.
Well, I hope you enjoyed making the Celtic Weave lace top or dress with me today. I would love to hear from you. Please feel free to comment below. God bless. Bye-bye.